Welcome back to the Midnight Tapes. Get comfortable. Turn the lights down low, pull the blanket up, and let the rain settle in around you. Let it tap against the windows, soft and steady, like fingers moving across old glass. Let the room go quiet around you. Let the screen fade into the dark. Tonight, all 8 stories come from the same place, or at least from the same kind of place. The night shift. The hours after midnight have a different shape. Anyone who has worked them knows that. A building can feel ordinary during the day, full of voices and footsteps and ringing phones, and then become something else entirely once the last person leaves. A hospital basement becomes longer than it should be. A road grows emptier than any road should be. A hallway on a security monitor starts to feel less like part of a building and more like a place waiting to be found. People will tell you the worst part of working nights is the boredom. They will say it is the coffee going cold, the aching eyes, the empty hours that stretch and fold over themselves. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is the moment the boredom ends. It is the sound that should not be there. The extra light on a camera feed. The second set of footsteps. The voice that comes through a headset after everything has been locked and shut down. The tapes you are about to hear came from people who had ordinary jobs. Security guards, cleaners, toll booth workers, IT staff, people who were not looking for anything strange. Most of them did not tell anyone while they were still employed. Some quit without explanation. Some mailed back their keys. Some still wake up tired, as if part of them never stopped working. You do not have to stay awake for all of them. Let your eyes close when they want to. Let the rain cover the edges of the words. You are safe here. The door is locked. The dark is just the dark. Just do not listen too closely. Let us begin. The security monitors. I worked night security in an office building downtown, one of those tall glass places that look clean and expensive from the street but feel hollow once the people leave. 14 floors, 2 stairwells, 3 elevator banks, a parking level, a loading dock, and a basement security office with no windows. During the day, the lobby was full of people in suits carrying coffee and pretending not to be tired. By 7 in the evening, the building emptied out so completely that it felt abandoned. The security room was in the basement, tucked behind a gray fire door beside the service elevator. Inside, there was a desk, a broken office chair, a microwave that smelled like old soup, a little refrigerator, and a wall of monitors. The cameras were labeled in plain white text. Lobby North, Lobby South, Floor 3 East, Floor 3 West, Stairwell A, Stairwell B, Loading Bay, Parking Exit. It was boring, but boring was better than dangerous. For the first few weeks, I almost enjoyed it. I had coffee. I had a book. I had the low hum of the ventilation system and the soft blue glow of the screens. Every hallway looked the same after midnight. Long strips of carpet, closed office doors, emergency lights reflecting off polished floors. Sometimes a cleaner would pass through pushing a cart. Sometimes a lawyer or accountant would leave late and look surprised to see me watching from the desk. Mostly, nothing moved. Then I noticed the extra monitor. It was in the bottom right corner of the wall, half hidden by the angle of the room. At first I thought it had always been there and I had just stopped paying attention to it. The label in the corner said Sub 2. The image showed a concrete hallway, narrow and dim, with a single light far away at the end. There were no doors visible, no pipes, no signs. Just concrete walls, a concrete floor, and that distant yellowish light. The problem was that the building did not have a Sub 2. I knew that because part of my job was doing rounds. I had walked every level. The basement where I sat was the lowest floor. There was a parking level below the street, yes, but it was labeled parking, not Sub 2, and it looked nothing like the hallway on that monitor. There was no second basement, no hidden service corridor, no old tunnel, nothing on the map they had given me. The next morning I asked the day guard. His name was Martin. He had worked there for 12 years and took pride in knowing everything about the building. I mentioned the Sub 2 camera as casually as I could, like I was just curious. Martin frowned and leaned back in his chair. "There is no Sub 2 camera," he said. I pointed to the bottom right monitor, but by then the screen was blank. Not black exactly. It was showing the standard blue signal screen with a timestamp, like an unused input. The label was gone. Martin shrugged and said the system glitched sometimes. Old wiring, new software. He told me not to worry about it unless I saw an actual person. That night, the camera was back. Same label, same concrete hallway, same light at the far end. The timestamp matched the others. Nothing moved. I stared at it for a long time, longer than I meant to, waiting for some obvious sign that it was a video loop, a flicker, a repeated pattern, a shadow crossing the same way twice. There was nothing, just the hallway and the light. For a while, that was all. Strange but harmless. A hallway that should not exist. A light that stayed far away. Then the light started getting closer. I did not notice it all at once. It was the kind of change you feel before you can prove it. The light at the end of the hallway looked a little larger, a little brighter. I told myself it was a camera exposure issue. Maybe the bulb had warmed up. Maybe the angle had changed. But over the next 2 weeks, there was no denying it. The glow crept down the hallway one night at a time. That night, the light on the monitor was halfway down the hall. For the first time, I could see that it was not fixed to the ceiling. It swayed slightly, not much, but enough. It moved the way a lantern moves when someone is carrying it. The camera feed was grainy, but there was a shape behind the glow. Tall, narrow, too still when the light was still, too smooth when it shifted. I stopped doing rounds after that. I sat in the security office with the door locked and watched the monitors until my eyes burned. If an alarm had gone off, I do not know what I would have done. Probably nothing. Probably sat there and let it ring. The night it reached the camera, the rain was heavy. I remember that because I could hear water running through the drains behind the wall, a deep rushing sound under the building. Around 3 in the morning, I looked up from my coffee and saw that the Sub 2 hallway was filled with light. Whatever had been carrying it was right in front of the lens. I will not describe its face. I have tried to describe it before and every version sounds wrong, because the terror of it was not that it looked like a monster. It was that it looked like something trying to be patient, something that had taken a very long time to arrive and was not angry about the wait. The light was held low, beneath where a hand should have been, and it made the concrete walls shine wetly. Not quickly, not with a jump. Slowly, almost politely, as if it knew how close was close enough. It looked directly into the lens, and I felt the old basement office vanish around me. It was not looking at a camera. It was looking through one. It knew there was someone on the other side. It knew there had always been someone on the other side. Then it lifted one hand and waved. The monitor cut to blue. I did not finish the shift. I did not clock out. I did not wait for Martin. I walked out into the rain with my keys still in my hand, got into my car, drove home, and did not stop shaking until sunrise. 2 days later, I mailed the keys back in a padded envelope. I never answered the calls from the office. I never asked if the camera feed stayed gone. Or maybe there is another hallway now. Maybe the label says sub 3. The rain is still falling. Let it cover the sound of the monitors. Stay with me. The next tape is already playing. The drive-through after 2. I worked the late shift at a burger place off the highway, the kind of place people only stopped at because there was nothing else for miles. Truckers came through. Night nurses. College kids driving too fast. Men in work boots with dust on their pants. People who looked like they had been awake for days. During the dinner rush, the place was all noise and grease and shouting. After midnight, it turned into a bright little box sitting alone in the dark. We closed the lobby at 10. The drive-through stayed open until 2. One Tuesday in November, it rained so hard the parking lot looked silver. We had maybe 6 customers after midnight. By 1:45 we were done. My manager, Elena, was counting the register. The cook had already cleaned the grill. I put the last batch of fries in the warmer even though I knew no one would buy them. At 2 exactly, Elena shut off the menu board, locked the drive-through lane, and told me to start wiping the counters. At 2:12, the order speaker chimed. That sound was impossible to mistake. It was bright and cheerful, the same little tone we had heard all night whenever a car rolled over the sensor at the menu board. Elena frowned and looked at the camera screen above the window. Empty lane, wet pavement, rain bouncing in the light. No car. The headset was still on my head. I reached up to turn it off, and that was when the voice came through. It was low and calm, not loud, not angry, just close enough to be heard over the static and rain. Number 3, no onions. Elena asked what was wrong. I told her someone was at the speaker. She looked at the camera again and said there was no one there. The cook laughed nervously and said maybe it was picking up a trucker radio. That could happen, he said, though he did not sound convinced. I pressed the talk button and said we were closed. There was a pause. Static. Rain. Then the same voice. Number 3. No onions. Exactly the same. Not similar. Not repeated like a person asking again. The same words in the same rhythm like a recording had been played twice. I told it again that we were closed. I said the drive-through was shut down. I said it would have to come back in the morning. Number 3. No onions. Elena pulled off the headset and set it on the counter like it might bite her. We all stared at it. The little green light on the side blinked once. Then again. The The speaker hissed. This time it was clearer, less static. The voice sounded closer, even though the headset was not on anyone's ear. We all heard it from where we stood. The cook backed away from the back door. I went to the drive-through window and looked out. There was no car at the menu board, no headlights, no shadow. The lane curved around the side of the building, past the order speaker, then up to the window where I stood. Rain covered the glass and distorted the outside lights. For a moment, I thought I saw someone standing beside the menu board, but when I blinked, there was only rain. I know that sounds strange when I say it now. A voice in a headset should not have distance. It should be in your ear or on a speaker or not there at all. But anyone who heard it would understand. The first time it had sounded like it was at the order box. The next time halfway through the lane. Now it sounded like it was coming from just around the corner of the building, moving slowly toward the pickup window. Elena unplugged the headset base from the wall. For about 5 seconds, there was only the rain and the buzzing lights. Then, from the drive-through speaker mounted outside the window, the voice said, "Number 3, no onions." The cook whispered something in Spanish and crossed himself. Elena told us to get away from the window. I wanted to move. I really did. But my legs would not listen. I stood there staring through the streaked glass at the empty lane, listening to the voice continue. Now it sounded like it was directly below the window. I crouched. I did not decide to crouch. My body folded down behind the counter on its own. Elena and the cook did the same. We sat on the sticky floor between boxes of sauce packets and cleaning supplies while the voice kept speaking through the glass. It never got louder. It never got angry. It just repeated the order with perfect patience, as if it expected the food to appear sooner or later. We stayed down there until 2:40, maybe longer. None of us checked the time. At some point, the voice stopped. Not faded. Stopped. The rain filled the silence. Elena called the police from the office. They came, looked around the building, found nothing, and told us the storm must have triggered the system. They said interference could do weird things. They said it with the confidence of people who did not have to work there the next night. But a few days later, I found out about the diner. One of the older employees mentioned it while we were smoking behind the dumpster before the dinner rush. The burger place had been built on the site of a roadside diner that burned down in the 80s. Grease fire, closed exits, bad wiring. A few customers and one waitress did not make it out. The story was old enough that people treated it like local trivia. I looked it up when I got home. There was one scanned newspaper clipping with a blurry photo of the diner sign. The place had been called Marlene's. The article mentioned regulars, truckers, breakfast all day, and a house special that customers ordered by number. Number 3, a burger plate with fried onions. And on the menu, in small print, a note said that regulars often ordered it one way. No onions. I quit before my next shift. I told Elena it was because of school. She did not ask questions. The cook left too not long after. The building is still there off the highway. I have driven past it twice, both times during the day, and both times I saw cars at the drive-thru like nothing had ever happened. The last time I passed it, I slowed down near the entrance, just enough to glance toward the order speaker. It was daylight. The menu board was on. The sky was clear. There was nothing frightening about it. Then my car radio crackled just once, and through the speakers, faint and wet and patient, a voice said, "Number 3, no onions. You are doing fine. Let your eyes rest. The rain knows the way through the dark." The next tape begins below the hospital, where the lights never quite stop humming. The hospital basement. I cleaned a hospital overnight. Not the whole hospital, of course. Nobody cleans a whole hospital alone. I was assigned to the older wing, the administrative halls, the staff bathrooms, the empty waiting areas, and the basement corridors that connected storage rooms to laundry and maintenance. It was not glamorous work, but I liked it more than I expected. At night, the hospital changed. The loud parts stayed loud, the emergency department, the elevators, the nurses' stations, but the rest of the building became calm in a way daylight never allowed. The basement belonged to an older version of the hospital. Most of the basement was still in use. Laundry, records, supply cages, maintenance shops, but there was one corridor at the far end that led into a closed wing. The door was supposed to be locked. It had a faded sign that said outpatient services, though someone had crossed it out with black marker years before. I never needed to go past it. My supervisor told me to mop up to the door and turn around. The first time I saw the waiting room, the door was open. Plastic chairs lined the walls. There was an old reception desk with a dusty glass partition. A coffee machine sat in the corner with a handwritten out-of-order sign taped to it. The magazines on the side table were yellow and curled at the edges. It looked abandoned, except for the people sitting there. There were 6 of them, maybe 7. It was hard to count because they were so still. An elderly man in a brown coat. A woman in a hospital gown with a blanket folded over her lap. A young mother holding a child whose face was turned into her shoulder. A man in a work shirt with dark stains near the collar. Another woman in a hat that looked too old-fashioned, like something from a photo album. They all faced the reception desk. None of them spoke. None of them looked at me. For a moment, embarrassment came before fear. That is strange, but true. I thought I had walked into a place where patients were waiting. I thought I had disturbed them. I said sorry. My voice sounded too loud in that little hallway. No one answered. Upstairs, I told the charge nurse on the night desk that there were people waiting in the old outpatient area. She stared at me for a second, then asked me which area I meant. When I told her, she frowned. That wing had been closed for 15 years. No patients, no staff, no clinic. She called maintenance. Maintenance said the door was locked and had been locked for years. The next night, the door was open again. Not similar people. The same ones. The old man in the brown coat. The woman in the hospital gown. The mother and child. The man with stains near his collar. The woman in the old hat. They sat in the same chairs, hands folded or resting in their laps, all facing the dead reception desk. No one turned when my cart squeaked. I cleaned the basement, but I avoided that corridor. I mopped up to the turn, took the trash from the laundry room, wiped the staff sinks, and left the old wing alone. The door was not always open. Some nights it was shut and locked like it should be. Some nights it stood open just enough for me to see the thin strip of dark beyond it. On those nights I did not look. They were waiting to be called. That became obvious to me in a way I cannot explain. They were not lost. They were not trapped in the room by accident. They had been told to sit there and wait for their names, and they were still obeying. The empty reception desk was not empty to them. They looked at it the way people look at a door that might open any second. Then came the morning when the waiting room was empty. It was near the end of my shift, maybe 5:30. The hospital was in that strange hour before morning, when the night staff get quiet and the day staff have not yet arrived. I was pushing my cart toward the elevator when I saw the old wing door standing wide open. The chairs were empty. The old man was gone. The woman in the gown was gone. The mother and child, gone. The man with the stains, gone. The woman in the hat, gone. The waiting room looked smaller without them. Just chairs and dust and the dead coffee machine. For 1 second, I almost felt relief, because some quiet part of me understood what an empty waiting room means. It does not mean the waiting is over in a good way. It means everyone has been called. From somewhere deeper in the closed wing, beyond the reception desk, beyond a door I had never seen open before, a voice began reading names. It was a woman's voice, clear, professional, bored. The kind of voice you hear from behind glass in clinics and government offices. It read one name, paused, read another. Each name was followed by a soft sound I could not place. A chair moving, feet shuffling, a door closing. I stood in the hallway with my hand on the cart, unable to breathe. The list was almost finished. I knew that too. I do not know how. There were only a few names left. The voice moved steadily down the page. Then it read mine. Not my first name only. My full name, spoken correctly, calmly, like I had been expected. I ran. I left the cart where it was, took the stairs instead of the elevator, and came out in the emergency department sweating so badly that a nurse asked if I was sick. I told my supervisor I had thrown up. I went home early. That afternoon I quit over the phone. Weeks later, my final check came in the mail. Inside the envelope, folded with the pay stub, was a paper ticket from an old number dispenser. Brittle, yellowed, number 87. I burned it in my kitchen sink. If your eyes are closed now, let them stay closed. You do not need to see for this one. This tape comes from the edge of the sea, where every sound climbs the tower. The lighthouse log. I took a job tending a lighthouse on a stretch of cold northern coast where the cliffs dropped straight into black water. It was not the romantic kind of lighthouse people photograph in summer. There were no tourists, no gift shop, no white fence, no charming village nearby. Just rock, wind, gray sea, and a tower that had been standing there longer than anyone alive could remember. The light was automated, mostly. That was what the agency told me when I applied. My job was to be present, keep records, check the generator, inspect the lens housing, report weather conditions, make small repairs if something failed. One keeper at a time, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. There was a radio, a satellite phone, a supply room, a little kitchen, a bunk, and a logbook that every keeper was expected to maintain. The keeper I replaced was named Harlan. He was older, thin, with a white beard and a way of looking past your shoulder while you spoke. During the handover, he showed me the generator, the fuel gauges, the emergency beacon, the lamp room, and the logbook. He talked fast, like someone trying to finish before he changed his mind about leaving. "Do not skip entries," he said. "Do not skip entries," he said again. Then the boat took him back to the mainland, and I was alone. The first night was beautiful, terrifying, but beautiful. Wind pushed against the tower hard enough to make it groan. The beam turned above me in slow, sweeping circles, laying white light across the water and pulling it back again. Every few seconds, the room brightened, then darkened, brightened, darkened. The sea below never stopped moving. Then, near the end of his final rotation, they changed. October 12th. Heard movement on exterior stairs after midnight. No vessel visible. Door secured. October 13th. Wet footprints found on lower landing. Leading upward only. No return prints. Rain heavy. October 14th. Knock on lamp room door at 2:17. I was inside. Exterior stairs empty when checked at dawn. October 15th. Found second entry above mine this morning. Not my handwriting. Entry describes my movements accurately. Removed page. October 16th. Page returned. Same entry. Added line. He looks down when he hears the steps. October 18th. It does not use the stairs anymore. That was Harlan's final entry. On my third night, I heard the stairs. It was just after 2 in the morning. The storm had weakened, leaving a thin rain and a steady wind from the east. I was in the keeper's room below the lantern, lying on the bunk with a book open on my chest. The tower was dark except for the sweep of the light above. Every few seconds, a pale band crossed the wall. The exterior stair climbed around the tower from the lower door to the lantern gallery. I knew the sound of my own boots on it. This was the same sound, but wetter, as if whoever climbed had come directly from the sea and had not bothered to wipe their feet. I told myself it was rainwater dripping from one landing to the next. I told myself it was a loose cable hitting the rail. I told myself it was anything except what it was. But each step had weight. Each step arrived exactly where a foot would land if someone were climbing. They stopped above me. Then I opened the logbook. There was an entry already written at the top of the page. Not in my handwriting. October 21st. New keeper heard steps at 2:13. Sat upright. Did not open door. Wore gray sweater. Left hand shaking. He locks the door too. They always lock the door. I called the mainland. The radio crackled. The operator said weather might delay non-essential transport, but asked if I had an emergency. I looked at the logbook. I looked at the gray daylight in the small window. I thought about Harlan looking at me during the handover. No emergency, I said. Maybe because I was embarrassed. Maybe because leaving on day 4 would have meant explaining something I could not explain. Maybe because part of me believed that as long as I kept the routine would protect me. Logs, checks, meals, sleep, light, logs again. The job was to make sure the light never went dark. I focused on that. Every morning after that, there was a second entry. First, I read them. They described ordinary things with a terrible intimacy. He boiled water at 19:05 and forgot to drink the tea. He stood at the west window for 6 minutes. He dreamed of his ex-wife, but not kindly. He checked under the bunk after hearing the scrape. He pretended not to hear breathing in the stairwell. Some things in the entries were not things anyone could have seen. He looked at the sea and wondered if falling would be easier than staying. That was when I stopped reading them. So I made a compromise with whatever kept writing. Every night, before I went to bed, I opened the logbook to the next page and left the top half blank. Then I wrote my official entry below it. Weather, sea state, lamp functioning, generator stable. I gave it room. It seemed to prefer that. They no longer climbed the exterior stairs. Harlan had been right. It did not need them anymore. Now the sounds came from inside the tower. A slow step on the spiral stair. A pause outside the kitchen. A wet drag near the supply room. Sometimes I would hear the lamp room door open above me, though it was locked and checked every evening. Sometimes, during heavy fog, I heard a second set of footsteps walking in time with mine while I climbed to inspect the lens. I finished my 2 weeks. When the relief boat came, I packed quickly. I did not look back at the tower from the water. Harlan was not on the dock when we reached the mainland. I never saw him again. As I closed the logbook, I noticed writing beginning to appear in that empty space. Pale at first, then darker, as if written by an invisible hand pressing wet ink through the paper. I should have left. I should have walked away without reading. But I read the first line. He thinks he is leaving. That was enough. I shut the book and went down to the boat. Because last winter, after a storm, I opened a notebook on my kitchen counter and found one line written above my grocery list in Harlan's narrow hand. The light never went dark. Breathe slowly. The rain has you. The road ahead is empty except for headlights, coins, and a gate that rises every hour. The toll booth. I worked a toll booth on a rural highway, the graveyard shift, midnight to 8. It was one of the old booths, the kind that still took cash long after most of the state had moved to electronic passes and cameras. The highway cut through farmland and pine woods, connecting two towns that seemed to forget about each other after sunset. During the day, commuters complained about coins and receipts. At night, the road belonged to truckers, drunks, and people who drove with both hands on the wheel and their eyes fixed straight ahead. The old sedan first came through on a Thursday. It was pale, though I could not tell if it was white or gray or some faded color that only looked pale under the sodium lights. Maybe an 80s model. Boxy. Long hood. Dull chrome. It rolled up just after 2 in the morning and stopped perfectly at the window. Not a little too far forward like most people. Not too far back. Perfectly. The driver's window lowered only an inch. A hand came out holding exact change. I took the coins. They were cold. Colder than they should have been, but it was a chilly night and some cars have bad heaters. I dropped them in the drawer and pressed the button. The gate rose. The sedan drove through without a word. 3, it came back. That was the first thing that bothered me. My booth served the eastbound lane. The westbound toll was on the other side of the highway, separated by a concrete divider and a stretch of grass. If someone wanted to loop around and pass me again going east, they would have to drive more than 40 miles to the next exit, turn around, pass the westbound booth, drive 40 miles back, turn around again, and then reach me. It was not impossible, technically, but it was ridiculous. No one would do it in an hour. The pale sedan rolled up. The window lowered an inch. The same gray hand held out exact change. For it came again. By then I was unsettled enough to write down the license plate. Only I could not read it. The plate was there, but the light hid it strangely. The numbers looked blurred, not because the car moved, but because my eyes refused to hold them. I blinked. The gate came down. The sedan disappeared into the dark. The next night, the sedan came at 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Always eastbound, always exact change, always silent. I started watching the road behind it. No headlights before it, no headlights after it. The sedan seemed to appear at the far edge of the light, roll forward, pay, and vanish beyond the gate. It never accelerated hard. It never braked suddenly. It moved with the calm patience of a thing following instructions. By the fourth night, I was afraid of 2 o'clock. One night I tried to speak. "Where are you headed?" I asked. The driver did not answer. The hand did not tremble. It did not withdraw. It waited, so I took the coins. The first time I saw the face was not because the window lowered farther. It never did. I saw it because I stood up and leaned down, putting my own face almost level with the crack. I had spent all week imagining an old man or a woman, or maybe no one at all. I needed to know. The hand extended the coins. Above the collar, there was nothing. Not darkness. Not a mask. Not a wound. Nothing dramatic enough to make sense of. There was a hat brim, and beneath it an empty space where a face should have been. The seat behind it was visible through that absence in a way that made my mind slip. The collar of the coat turned politely toward me. The body waited. I took them. The gate rose. The faceless driver drove on. The coins began to bother me most. One night I kept a quarter. I do not know why. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted to see if it would vanish. At 2, when the sedan paid, I palmed one coin and dropped the rest in the drawer. I lifted the gate. The car drove off. The quarter sat in my fist like a piece of ice. For the rest of the shift, I could feel it through my pocket. Cold at first, then warmer, then too warm. By sunrise, when I took it out in the employee lot, it had warmed to the temperature of a hand. Not my hand, someone else's. It felt as if it had been held for a very long time. On my way home, I stopped at the bridge over the river and threw it as far as I could. It flashed once in the morning light and vanished into the water. I felt foolish, then relieved. That night, when the sedan came at 2, the hand offered exact change. On top of the coins was the same 1983 quarter, wet and bright. I knew it was the same because it had a scratch across Washington's face. I took it. I lifted the gate. At 6, instead of waiting for my relief, I walked out of the booth. left the drawer open, and got into my car. My supervisor called me later, angry at first, then confused. He said the booth cameras showed me working until 8. He said the drawer balanced perfectly. He said I had even filled out the shift report in my own handwriting. Then he laughed and said one old sedan showed up on the footage a few times, but the video glitched whenever it reached the window. Probably the lights, he said. The cameras were always bad at night. I never went back to collect my things, but as I passed the old toll site, my dashboard chimed. Low fuel. That was impossible. I had filled the tank 20 miles before. I looked down at the gauge. Full. The chime sounded again anyway. Then something rattled in the cup holder. A coin. An old quarter. Cold enough to fog the plastic around it. I pulled over at the next exit and threw it into a field without looking at the date. Some change you do not keep. Almost there now. Stay soft. Let the rain keep time. This next room is locked from the outside, from the inside, and from everywhere in between. The server room. I did overnight IT for a data company, which sounds more important than it was. Most of the time, I was a babysitter for machines. If a system alarm went off at 3 in the morning, I checked the logs, restarted a service, swapped a drive, or called someone higher up who would be annoyed that I had done exactly what the protocol told me to do. The building was modern, all dark glass and badge readers, sitting in a business park that emptied completely after 6. The server room was always cold. That was normal. The machines needed it. Rows of black racks stood in perfect lines, each one filled with equipment blinking green and blue. The sound in there was constant, a deep layered hum from fans and cooling systems, so steady that after a few minutes your brain tried to turn it into silence. If you stayed too long, your ears rang when you came out. The first time I heard footsteps inside, I was standing outside the locked door with a cup of coffee in my hand. It was around 3:15. I remember the time because the network graph had just stabilized after a backup job, and I had gone to check the temperature reading on the wall panel. As I stood there, I heard someone walking in the server room. 3 steps. A pause. 2 more. The sound was faint under the hum, but distinct. Shoes on raised floor panels. Slow, casual, like someone doing a routine check between the racks. I looked at the access panel. Locked. I looked at the camera feed on my tablet. Empty aisle. I scanned the access log. Last entry, mine, at 11:42, when I had checked a warning light. No exit after that because the system only logged entries, but I knew I had left. No other badge, no forced door, no alarm. Then the footsteps moved closer to the door. I stepped back. They stopped on the other side. For several seconds, I stood facing the door, coffee cooling in my hand, imagining someone standing inches away behind a slab of locked metal. I almost put my hand to the scanner to open it. Some stupid part of me wanted to prove the room was empty. The first real event happened on a Sunday. The building was completely empty. No cleaners, no maintenance, no scheduled work. At 3:22, the footsteps started. I was watching the camera feed when I heard them, so I saw the empty aisle at the same time I heard someone moving through it. The sound came through the wall and the door, muffled but clear. Then, on the camera, one rack light changed from green to red. The lights were changing in sequence, following the footsteps down the aisle. I opened the monitoring dashboard so fast I knocked over my coffee. No faults, no warnings, no status changes. According to the system, everything was fine. But on the camera feed, the rack lights continued shifting one by one, marking a path through the room. The red light on rack D22 stayed red. Finally, I badged in and placed my hand on the scanner. The door clicked open with a soft magnetic release. Cold air rolled over my shoes. The hum grew louder. The room looked normal. Empty aisles, blinking lights, white floor panels. As soon as I stepped inside, every sound changed. The hum did not stop, but it pulled back somehow, becoming thinner. I could hear my own breathing inside my head. I could hear the soft click of the door closing behind me. I could hear, far away between the racks, one final footstep. Then silence. I walked toward D22. Every rack I passed reacted. At first I thought I was imagining it. Green lights shifted red as I reached them, then returned to green when I moved on. Not all lights, just one status light at eye level on each rack, one after another, like something was tracking my progress through the machines. I stopped. The red light stopped beside me. I took one step back. The previous rack blinked red again. I opened the rack door. Inside, everything looked fine. Fans spinning, drives seated, no warning tones. I checked the cable, secure. I checked the temperature, normal. I checked the local display, no errors. Then I saw the reflection. The rack door was glossy enough to show the aisle behind me, warped and dark. In that reflection, between two rows of servers, there was a figure standing very still. Not a person exactly, a vertical darkness, the suggestion of shoulders, the pale oval of something that might have been a face if the reflection had been clearer. It stood where the footsteps had stopped. It was close enough that if I turned around, I thought I might feel its breath. I did not turn. Instead, I closed the rack door slowly and watched the reflection move with it. The figure remained in the aisle. As the door clicked shut, the red light on D22 turned green. I walked out without running. I do not know how. My body wanted to run. My mind kept repeating, if you run, it runs. I moved down the aisle while the lights tracked me in reverse, red ahead, green behind, like the room was swallowing and releasing me one step at a time. When I reached the door, it did not open. I placed my hand on the scanner. Nothing. Badge. Nothing. Hand again. Nothing. The footsteps began behind me, slow, unhurried, crossing the server room floor. I slapped the emergency release. The door opened. I fell into the hallway and nearly hit the opposite wall. The door closed behind me. Through the little reinforced window, the server room looked empty. All lights green, all aisles clear. A week later, one of the day engineers called me. Not my manager, someone I liked. He asked if anything strange had happened in the server room before I left. I asked what he meant. He said access logs showed my handprint entering the room every night at 3:17, even after I quit. That was impossible. My badge had been disabled. My hand was not there. He said the cameras never showed anyone entering. The door never opened on video, but the logs recorded a successful biometric scan. Every night, same time, my user ID, my hand. The system had started creating tickets on its own. Short tickets, no assigned user, no device ID, just one line in the description field. He is outside the door now. He did. The company moved buildings 2 years later, and I heard the old office was leased to another firm. Maybe they tore out the server room. Maybe they painted the walls and put desks where the racks used to be. Maybe the new tenants never hear anything over the air conditioning. But sometimes, when my apartment is quiet and the refrigerator hums in the next room, I hear slow footsteps pacing behind the sound. And once, on a frozen update screen at work, every little status icon turned red one after another, from left to right, stopping exactly where my cursor rested. 2 more. Let your breathing slow with the rain. The station is empty now, but the rails remember every train that ever came through. The last train. I worked nights at a metro station near the end of a line. It was not one of the busy central stations with musicians and crowds and police walking through every hour. It was almost the last stop before the tracks went above ground and then disappeared into the maintenance yard. By midnight, the place felt forgotten. Tiles, benches, vending machines, fluorescent lights, and the long black tunnel mouth waiting at the end of the platform. My job was simple. Watch the platforms. Help the last few passengers. See off the final scheduled train at 12:40. Lock the gates. Check the bathrooms. File the closing report. Leave through the staff exit. Most nights I was home by 1:15. The last train was always the same. 12:40. Southbound. 2 cars mostly empty, sometimes one tired passenger sleeping with a backpack in their lap, sometimes no one at all. The driver knew me and would lift 2 fingers from the controls as he pulled in. I would stand near the gate, watch the doors close, watch the red tail lights shrink into the tunnel, and then the station belonged to me. The first time I heard the extra train, I had already locked the main gate. It was 12:58. The last scheduled train had left 18 minutes earlier. I was on the platform level, checking the far stairwell, when the rails began to sing. Anyone who works around trains knows that sound. It comes before the train arrives. A thin vibration in the metal that rises through the platform and into your teeth. Then the air changes. A pressure in the tunnel. Push of wind. The station inhales before the train comes in. I stepped back from the edge and keyed my radio. Control did not answer at first. The signal was always bad underground. I tried again and got static. The tunnel ahead was black, but the air rushing out of it carried a smell I did not recognize. Dust, hot metal, old cloth, something stale like a room opened after years. Then the train came in. It was not one of ours. I knew that immediately. The shape was wrong. Older, heavier. The front lights were dim and yellow, not bright white. The paint was a color the system had not used in decades. It moved slowly, much slower than a normal train entering service, and it made almost no sound except for the wheels. No announcement, No electronic chime. No recorded voice telling passengers to stand clear. It stopped perfectly along the platform. The doors opened. No one got off. For a few seconds, I thought it was empty. Then I looked through the windows and saw that every car was full. People sat shoulder to shoulder in the yellow light. Men in hats. Women in coats with old buttons. A boy holding a paper bag. A soldier with his hands folded. A woman in a nurse's cape. A man with a newspaper open in front of him, though his eyes did not move across the page. Their clothes belonged to different decades, but all of them sat the same way, upright, still, facing forward. No one looked out. That was the worst part at first. Not one face turned toward the platform. Not one passenger seemed curious about me. The doors remained open. The train waited. The air that came from inside was cold and dry, carrying the smell of dust and old fabric. Instead, I stood very still. There are moments when understanding arrives without words. I knew the train was waiting for me, not because anyone gestured, not because a voice called. The open doors made it clear. The empty strip of platform between me and the nearest car felt like an invitation. Patient one. It had stopped here after the last train because someone might still need to board. I did not move. I looked down at my shoes. I looked at the yellow safety line. I looked at anything except the passengers' faces. Some instinct told me that making eye contact would be a kind of answer. The doors stayed open for almost a minute. Then, from the speaker inside the nearest car, a voice crackled. Not the automated voice. An older recording, warped and full of static. Last train. That was all. The doors closed. The train pulled away into the tunnel. The tail lights did not shrink like normal train lights. They faded, as if the tunnel swallowed them in layers. Red became dull orange, then brown, then nothing. The rails stopped singing. Control asked me to repeat my last call. I said there had been an unscheduled train. The dispatcher paused, then told me no train had entered my station after 12:40. I said I had seen it. He asked if it was maintenance. I said no. He asked if anyone boarded. I said no. The line went quiet for long enough that I thought the signal had dropped. Then he said, "Close the station and come upstairs." His voice had changed. When he dismissed me, an older driver was waiting in the hallway. His name was Malik. He had been with the system for more than 30 years and knew every rumor on every line. He walked beside me to the break room and poured coffee even though neither of us wanted it. "You did not get on," he said. "It was not a question." I said no. "Good," he said. Then he told me what people only tell you when they have decided you already know too much. Every old line has stories. Ghost trains, hidden platforms, sealed stations, signals that turn green for nothing. Most of it is nonsense. But some systems have what drivers call an extra. A train that is not scheduled and does not appear on the board. It shows up where lines are old enough, usually after closing, usually when the station is almost empty. No one knows where it starts. No one knows where it ends. The rule is simple. Never get on. I asked what happens if someone does. Malik stared into his coffee. "Room for one more," he said. I left transit 2 weeks later. Now, whenever I take a train as a passenger, I check the time. I check the board. I check the faces in the cars. If the lights are too warm, I wait for the next one. If no one looks up when the doors open, I step back. People get annoyed behind me. They sigh and push past. That is fine. Let them be annoyed. Because sometimes, late at night, when I am walking above ground and the city is quiet, I hear rails singing under the street long after service has ended. And I know an extra train is passing beneath me, still happy to make room for one more. Last one now. Let this be the one you fall asleep to. There is a yard at the edge of town, a fence line, a key ring, and someone waiting to take over. The watchman's replacement. I was a night watchman at a storage yard on the edge of town. It was not a high-security place. No valuable art, no secret government equipment, nothing like that. Just rows of shipping containers, construction materials, old machinery, impounded trailers, and a small office that smelled like dust, coffee, and mousetraps. The yard sat beyond the last gas station, where the streetlights thinned out and the road turned into county blacktop. The morning it started, Dale did not come. First, I was annoyed. 6 o'clock passed, then 6:10, then 6:20. I called his phone. Voicemail. I called the office. No answer because the office staff did not arrive until 8. I considered leaving the keys under the desk and going home, but the rules were clear. No unattended yard. If something happened, it would be on me. The sky brightened slowly. It had rained all night, and the gravel yard held puddles that reflected the gray morning. The containers stood in long rows, red and blue and rust brown, their sides streaked dark. Everything smelled wet. I remember feeling more tired than usual, the kind of tired that makes your bones feel full of sand. At 7:15, I saw someone at the far gate. A figure in uniform was walking across the yard toward the office. Dark jacket, cap work boots, key ring at the belt. The walk was wrong for Dale, though. No limp, no green pickup at the gate. Whoever it was had come in on foot, though I had not unlocked anything. The closer he came, the worse I felt. There was something too smooth about his movement. Not floating, not gliding. His feet touched the ground, but the timing was slightly off, as if the yard and the body disagreed about where each step should land. He crossed puddles without splashing. His shoulders stayed level. His head tilted forward like he was watching me from under the brim of the cap. It was mine, not similar, not a resemblance. My face, my build, my uniform, my tired eyes, my unshaved jaw. He stood across the yard wearing me as naturally as I wore myself. The same stain on the right sleeve, the same cracked watch band, the same posture I had after a long shift, shoulders slightly rounded, one hip stiff from standing too long. He lifted one hand. The keys. For a few seconds, we stood there in the wet yard, two versions of the same man, and I understood with a certainty that felt older than thought. He had come for the handover. He had come to take my place. All I had to do was walk forward, give him the keys, and go home. The office phone rang. I backed inside without taking my eyes off him and grabbed the receiver. Static. Then a voice. It sounded far away, buried under wind. It was Dale's voice. I said Dale's name. I said, "Where are you?" I said, "Someone is here." When I looked back through the office window, the thing with my face was closer. Not walking, just closer. 10 yards from the door now, his hands still out. His expression was patient, almost bored. He looked the way I must have looked every morning when waiting for Dale to take the keys. Tired, ready, entitled to relief. Then my own voice called my name. I reached the broken section of fence, threw my jacket over the wire, and climbed. I cut both hands. I tore my pants. I fell hard on the other side and rolled into wet grass. Behind me, the thing with my face stood at the fence. I looked down and saw my belt was empty. I had not handed them over. I know I had not. I had held them when I climbed out the window, but the ring now hung from his hand on the other side of the fence. Then he turned and walked back toward the office. I left my car in the lot. I walked 2 miles to a gas station and called a friend to pick me up. When I got home, I locked every door, pulled every curtain, and slept for 14 hours with the lights on. The manager was furious. He said I had abandoned my post. I told him Dale never showed and someone else came into the yard. He said Dale had called in sick the night before, which no one had told me. Then he said the strangest thing. "Your replacement clocked in at 6, he said. I told him that was impossible. He said the day watchman had arrived at 6 sharp, signed the log, walked the fence, and worked a full uneventful shift. The security camera showed him. The payroll system showed him. The logbook had his handwriting. He said the man on the footage looked exactly like me. I do not. Quit by phone. I said I was sick. I said I would mail the uniform. The manager told me not to bother, because apparently I had left one at the office that morning. Clean, folded, ready for the next shift. 2 weeks later, I woke at 5:48 in the morning with gravel in my shoes. They were beside my bed, wet and muddy, though I had gone to sleep barefoot. My legs ached like I had walked all night. Under my fingernails was black dirt. On my kitchen table sat a paper cup of gas station coffee, half finished, still warm. The office assistant answered. I asked who was working nights. She gave my name. My name. She said I was their most reliable watchman. Never late. Never missed a shift. Quiet but good. Better than the last guy, she joked, then seemed confused by her own words. After that, I started seeing myself in small ways. Reflections that moved a fraction late. A figure in a dark jacket at the end of an aisle in the grocery store. My own handwriting on notes I did not remember writing. Once, I came home from lunch and found my work boots by the door, wet with rain, though I had thrown them away after the first incident. The worst mornings are the ones when I wake before dawn already exhausted. I looked up the storage yard last year. It is still operating. Same address. Same fence, at least from the satellite image. Same rows of containers. There was a staff photo on the company website for a while. I should not have clicked it, but I did. There I was, standing with the employees near the office, wearing the night watchman's jacket, one hand resting on the key ring at my belt. smiling faintly, looking better than I had looked in years. Healthier, rested. The caption under the photo used my name. I stared at it until my laptop went dark. In the black reflection of the screen, for half a second, I saw myself standing behind me in uniform, waiting, just ready for me to hand over whatever I still had left. That is all the tapes for tonight. You made it to the end, or maybe you slipped into sleep somewhere along the way, while someone else was still awake, watching the monitors, taking the coins, walking the fence, listening to the rails. Either way, you can rest now. The stories are done. The night can go back to being only night. The rain will keep falling as long as you need it. Let it fill the spaces between the walls. Let it cover the footsteps outside the door. Let it blur the window until there is nothing beyond the glass but water and dark. Your room is warm. Your bed is safe. The door is locked. The shadows in the corners are only shadows. Let your shoulders go heavy. Let your breathing slow. If another tape is waiting, it can wait a little longer. If another story wants to be told, it can stay quiet until next time. You do not have to listen anymore tonight. Rest now. Sleep well. And I will see you again next time after midnight. Let the rain continue.